for the second time this year, Ben. The footy is back. It's been, 8 weeks? It feels like it's round one and we've just had an off-season all over again.
And yeah, I think still coming off our last episode, if you listened, I think it should be round one. But we won't discuss that again. Even though it does feel like round one, we are back, and that's the main thing at the moment. We can finally get back to talking about some football.
Yeah, look, it's a bit easy to say that when your team's sitting there on no points, you haven't got a win, you're 4 points under the top of the ladder, whereas, my team, we're sitting pretty, we've done well, we've earned our points.
Anyone who knows me knows that I'm very rational and not one-eyed supporter at all. I am 100% level-headed, and I make 100% proper judgments based off facts. I'm very, very objective.
I'm very objective and level-handed.
I got to hand it to you. That was correct.
But yeah, no, I'm pretty stoked that we're getting back into the footy. We're recording this on Tuesday. The team lists have just come out. We're only, 2 sleeps away from kickoff, with the Eels kicking it all off again, just like they had the first game when the season started before. And I think one of the biggest talking points of the footy coming back is everyone is saying the Eels have pretty much the easiest draw out of everyone. That, and they're getting
all
the majority of the free-to-air TV games. Is this a sign? Does the NRL just really want Parramatta to win this premiership?
Or they really want to watch them flop again, man. So you need to be careful with that.
Yeah, I think there's good odds of that happening. Who knows? But
you're a great fan.
I'm so pessimistic because I've been burned so many times before. But no, I love my team. I do have them tipped to make the grand final. So, yeah, which we'll get into later as well. But what I wanted to talk about first is this season still a write-off? In the last episode that we were talking about, we were saying that there always been asterisks next to it, all that. But that was before the new draw came out. We saw how many games are being played, which is nearly close to a full season. Everyone's playing everyone at least once. Do we feel like this season is still a bit of a write-off, or can you kind of hold it to be almost on par with a regular season?
Yeah, okay, so that was my biggest gripe, was the fact it was going to be such a short season. And I feel like it was going to be, as you said, the year that had the asterisks next to it due to that fact. But now that they've actually confirmed it's essentially a full season, 20 rounds altogether, not including the finals, I think that it adds a lot more sustenance to the year. It adds all those kind of slumps and highs for each team. And there's a lot more of those external factors that can come into play, just like they do in other years. Missing Origin, I don't think is that big for me, since the rest of the kind of year is this long. But I think that it's definitely a much more credible year for me, and I don't think that this year, if it continues to play out like a normal year from here on, can be marked with an asterisk next to it as much. There definitely are some arguments for it having an asterisk next to it, such as no home games and the whole you can't play if you haven't got your flu shot in Queensland things. There's a couple of more external factors, and it's not completely black and white. But for me, I think that it is much more a fully reputable season, I'd say.
Yeah, 100%. It's a lot longer than everyone anticipated it was going to be. Before, it was only going to be, I think it was another 13-game season or something like that. It wasn't going to be too many more games at all, but this way we're getting 20, which is only 3 games shorter played than a regular season. It's really close. So I would say, I probably wouldn't put an asterisk next to it. Everyone's going to remember it as the year of the coronavirus. Yeah. And like you said, no one had the home games. There's no crowd and stuff like that. But the players put in roughly just as much effort. And this is the first time they have such a stretch of playing so many games in a row because there's no buys. So it might even be harder on the players and their fitness and stuff like that as well. So it's not like they're having an easy season at all. I think it's still going to be the fittest, best team wins in the end. Yeah,
I guess so. But I mean, at the end of the day, there's not that many buy rounds in the year. So I don't think it's going to have that much of an adverse effect.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, all the players seem to look forward to their week off and everything, unless they're playing rep.
Don't we all?
Who knows? But yeah, exactly. I mean, I've been enjoying too many weeks off at this point, really, but...
I won't say that I'd want more off because that is wrong, and that's not okay.
No, fair enough. But with all the, we've seen, it's pretty much been an off-season in terms of team changes as well. There've been, yeah.
Yeah, it's completely felt like that, hasn't it?
It really has. There's been so many chopping and changing of sides with suspensions, injuries, and most of all, recruitments. There's been a lot of signings out of this. Yeah. Has that changed your top 8 or Smokey predictions at all?
I think that it has changed it minimally. I think it's kind of, for me, I'll talk probably later. I think we'll get into some of our smokies and our thoughts for the year again. But for some teams, it's pushed them over the line for me as being contenders for maybe a higher spot in the top 8. But otherwise, I think that they're just kind of upgrades, or they've been necessary changes that have facilitated players getting time now. And then, obviously you've got the whole poor Warriors situation where they're trying to deal with that too, where a lot of changes have happened. But overall, most of the changes have been pretty positive.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think most of them have been as well, or if players have been injured, they've been pretty adequately replaced. Like, you look at Jaden Brayley out of the Knights, like, that would have been devastating for them, and they would have had a lot of rounds without a pretty good number 9 played if we didn't have this break. But now they've got Andrew McCulloch coming in, who's going to do a good job as well.
To be fair, though, they do have the likes of Connor Watson and Kurt Mann who can play that number 9 position and do it well. But like you mentioned, it's a much better position to have a full-time number 9 in there.
That's right. You can still keep Connor Watson in his utility role that way, which is easily his best position, just playing that 14 and shoving him wherever. Or the same could be said for like the Eels as well. With Reid Marnie, he was supposed to have like an 8-week injury, 8 rounds without pretty much the one dedicated hooker in that whole top 30. That would have been really hard for the Eels to get through.
Well, there's been lots of injuries like that where it's kind of, like you said, new season where they've reset all the injuries in their back. And you go from Brodie Cross from the Broncos and then down to, like you said, Reid Mahoney, and then into like Wade Graham and Chad Townsend for the Sharks. Like, every team nearly has had like a kind of semi-major injury and had players come back now. It's an interesting time.
Yeah, or like Matt Moylan as well, playing fullback for the Sharks. Like, he could possibly be coming back this week, but yeah.
We'll move on from that.
Move on from Matty Moylan?
Yeah, please.
Why? Why, Ben? Don't you like him?
There's no reason. I just don't want to talk about it. It's not sequential for the podcast. I won't be fielding any further questions.
But to get back on like the smoky predictions and that, are there any teams that are sticking out for you? Like, now after all these changes have happened, is anyone looking good to scrape the 8 or maybe even the 4 that you might not have been thinking about?
Okay, for me, my smoky was extremely smoky when we went through it earlier in the year, and it was the Bulldogs. But for me, the team that's kind of pushed themselves over the cusp now is actually the Tigers. I think looking at their team, now that they're back to full strength, the trades they've made, now that they have a proper full-time number 9 who has been touted as a great player, who's like an upcomer and a game manipulator, I think that that's the one position that they really have felt the most impact of losing since Farah left, because he was good at controlling the game. And I think
100%.
the combination of that team, I think that they're one of the teams that are underrated. Like, their forward pack may not be the biggest of names, but man, they put in work every week. They've got like the likes of Mbai, who has gone kind of the waysider. They're trying to find his position. And then Duelli, who's moved back there and he's trying to make himself at home. And we know he's a great fullback. But looking at that team overall, I just really like the way that they're structured. And if Luke Brooks can play like he did last year, I think that they're the team to watch for.
Yeah, or if Benji can keep the form that he had in the first 2 rounds, he was going off.
That's true.
He was prime Benji again. When you first said that, you said that in the like Facebook Messenger chat we have, and I read that. I was like, oh, I don't know about that. Like, I don't know about the Tigers, but then I had a good think about it. They probably are one of the most underrated sides in the league. Like, they have people everywhere who can do the job, probably more than they get credit for.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. I think I agree with you. The Tigers are probably my biggest smoky. I've got the Knights making the 8 as well, which I don't think I did in our first episode for the season. But, yeah, I think the Knights are going to go pretty well too. They're starting to get people back from injury and stuff like that. Bradman Best, who's meant to be touted as he's going to be a gun centre, he's about to make his way back in and everything. So they're strengthening where they were weak before.
Oh, 100%. They've got Tex Hoy being blooded at fullback, and Phoenix crossed them back from injury, pushing for that halves position as well. Like, there's just so much going on for them, especially from the new blood coming through. But for me, I never really considered them worthy of being a smoky, simply because I thought they'd make the top 8 regardless.
I didn't have them in my original 8 from memory at the beginning of the season.
Yeah,
now
right.
I think I'm going to slot them in there. So, yeah.
Fair enough.
But with everything going the way it is, we've seen the strength of the draw for all the sides and everything. Do you have a predicted grand final out of this year, Ben?
It's really hard to kind of predict at this stage. I think that, especially with all the COVID things going on, and all the other kind of external factors, we need to kind of watch the first couple of rounds and see how each team has adapted, because it is a unique situation. But for me, looking at it just at a quick glance, I think it's going to have to be the Eels and the Roosters. The Roosters have a exceptionally hard home run, But I think by that stage, they can have worked out their kinks, and they're going to be a strong side again. The Eels have a good team. They have a really, really good team, like a grand final worthy team in nearly any draw. Add that to the fact that they're going to basically be playing on the easiest, probably, draws that has ever been. They nearly 100% have to make it.
We don't play anyone from last year's top 8 twice.
Yeah. It's you're in a very favourable position. And I think as long as you don't get that kind of, I guess, jitters that has happened to the Eels in finals football the last couple of years, I think that you go all the way. And I think this is the year that Moses has the experience to do that.
I think so too. If they can get away, like if they don't get their confidence put off by the fact that this is the likeliest we've looked to win anything since '86, and there's so many fans who are on their back to finally bring a premiership home. If that doesn't make them a little too anxious or nervous to pull it off, I think they could get there. But I don't actually have the Roosters making it to my grand final, to be honest.
That's completely fair enough.
Yeah, I've actually got... I don't know why. I just have a strange feeling about Canberra this year. I don't know. I feel like with the way the grand final went last year for them and everything, they've still got such a quality side this year. I reckon I think it'll be Eels Canberra.
They definitely could do it. Like, they've put some great additions into that side, and they have some depth. Like, saying the Roosters, well, literally, it's just a hunch, looking at it quickly in an overview, but it could easily be the Raiders as well. It could easily be the Storm as well. It's such a hard choice at the moment. But for me, the one that nearly locks itself in, like you said, is the Eels.
Yeah, and I'm seeing that out of a lot of people too. If I see them talking about who they're putting money on for the grand final or whatever, the Eels are almost always one of the two teams, and then it's who are the Eels going to play against. But I'd like to see an Eels-Canberra grand final. I think that'd be a really hard-fought, good game to watch.
Oh, for sure.
And I'd like to see Parramatta get one over Ricky Stewart as well after signing, like, what was it, a 4-year coaching deal and leaving.
My lord, you have a sore spot about that, don't you?
Nah, actually...
Bring it up a lot for someone who doesn't have a sore spot.
No, I actually think Ricky Stewart did the best thing for Parramatta in the last probably 20 years, which is... No. Well, before he left, he cleaned out all those average players that they had who were still signed on for a few more years and just got them all out of there, gave Brad Arthur a clean slate to use. So
he set up the foundation for what you guys needed at the time, even though it was 100%. Harsh.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'd always credit him for that. But that was pretty much all the talking points that we had before going into actually like looking at round 3 and our preview and predictions for all that and our fantasy and whatnot. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about, Ben?
Not particularly. We've zoomed through that. Nice and streamlined for the new year season. Twice new year because
absolutely.
It's the second start.
New year, point 2. But like obviously it's been a break in footy that there's been so much off the field drama and news and everything. There's been a lot to talk about. We've been absent about it pretty much because it's all stuff that you're going to see a lot from the media anyway. It's all talked about and, you know, it's always a beaten horse, all that stuff that the media's been talking about lately. And it's all pretty negative too. So we'd like to pretty much just talk about what's happening on the field. So yeah, we're going to try and keep our podcast that way as well. Alrighty, but here we are, round 3 now, 7:50 p.m, Thursday the 28th of May. Footy's back, Ben, kicking off at Suncorp. It's the Broncos and the Eels, and the last time these two sides met, it wasn't too pretty, was it?
Well, it wasn't too pretty for one side, I dare say. I think it was very pretty for someone, and their name was definitely Sam, or any Eels supporter. This is actually a really great game to kind of start the year off. We've talked about it a lot. The Eels team, I think, is just too strong for this matchup, personally. Looking at the Broncos, if they weren't missing 2 of their key forwards, I do truly think that the Broncos might be able to take it to the Eels. But I think without that, I guess, hint more of aggression and power in their forward pack, I think the Eels are going to be a bit more free to play the game that we know that they can play, but they weren't quite able to get out in the first 2 rounds not last year, at the start of the season, which was about 2 months ago.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you're writing the Broncos off a little more than I am personally. I think this one is nearly 50-50. I think the Broncos have been such a better team in rounds 1 and 2 than they were the last time these teams went against each other. And the Broncos, they can tough themselves out through a big game, as we saw in round 1 against the Cowboys. Wait, the Broncos won that, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like we saw that they love to inch themselves through tough games now, like they did against the Cowboys in round 1. And I really think Brodie Croft and Milford have been firing really well together, which I think is terrifying. And I don't know, the Broncos forward pack, there's something pretty special about it, I think. All those young guns, Alex Glenn's back, and Pat Carrigan has been fantastic in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
They've still got Payne Haas. They've got Flegler as well, who I think is a pretty underrated gun too. I think they have the Eels forward pack almost evenly matched. Even on the bench as well. Like I'm thinking this is going to be a 6-point game.
Well, I mean, like, that's a big call. I mean, like, the likes of Thomas Flegler, if you're just going the complete opposites, up against Regan Campbell-Gillard, Payne Haas against Stuart Apollo is probably a bit more one-sided there. Glenn and Sean Lane, Hopewadi and Madison, and then Carrigan and Niokore. I mean, realistically, most of those names are more favourable in the way of the Eels there. And then you've got the interchange where you've got a tried and true interchange from the Eels with some strength and some players that can really mesh into the side. Whereas you've got a lot more young guns and more new players to the team in the side of the Broncos there. Like Ethan Bulmer, I think this is going to be his debut as well. Like, there's a lot kind of going on there that work against the Broncos. I'm not saying, like I said, I'm not writing them off, but I do think this game goes to the Eels by more than 6 points.
By more than 6? Yeah, I mean, it certainly could. Both sides are so volatile, you don't know what side's going to show up, I suppose.
Yeah,
but,
I'm really banking on your team showing up.
Yeah, me too, because the Eels are my tip. I've got them tipped by 6. I'm guessing they're yours as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. And we have Kalen's tips as well. We didn't even mention at the top. Kalen couldn't make the episode.
He's only here in spirit.
He didn't bring all of the headphone adapters on his work trip that he needed because he has Apple and needs all these adapters and whatnot. Damn Apple.
But, life support system.
Yeah, that's it. But I've got Kalen's tips, and he's gone against both of us. He's gone with the Broncos. I guess, I don't know. Would you say that there's a home team advantage anymore, really? Like, there's no fans there for the atmosphere to turn it either way.
I think that there is a home team advantage only in the fact that there's less travel for one team. I think that's going to be the major factor when you look at a home game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, certainly. Like, travel always plays a part in it. I just don't think home team advantages are going to be as big
no way.
as
Not
they
at
once
all.
were. Yeah, definitely. But he's got the Broncos for that one. But moving on to the next game, Ben, we've got the Cowboys and the Titans. Big Queensland derby here.
Huge.
Who have you got picked?
I mean, Cowboys straight up. I mean,
Yeah.
beyond the fact that the Titans team is kind of just lots of band-aid solutions at the moment. Like, they've got so many players playing sort of out of position. They've lost a centre. They've got AJ Brimson, who's out indefinitely. Like, there's so many bad things going on for them in their side at the moment, adding to the fact that they're realistically still a developing side. It's way too hard to kind of call if they're going to mesh sometime this year, just because it's going to be so tumultuous for them. And then you look at the Cowboys, they have a great squad. They have a really good squad. And I think, like, having a ball-playing centre now who's got a bit of strength, added in with Clifford and Drinkwater starting to mesh again, like, they're just going to be a contender all year, basically, the Cowboys, whereas the Titans are going to struggle.
I agree 100%. Like, the more I look at the Cowboys lineup, the more I'm like, that's such a solid side that I think is going to be hard to beat for anyone.
Yeah.
And then you look at the Titans, it's pretty broken. There's a lot of band-aids on it, just shoving people somewhere to,
Yeah, look, realistically, if your team's got Tyrone Roberts at fullback, you stop there and you just wait for next year.
That's why you give Michael Gordon a call to come back for a year, maybe. I don't know.
No, he'll be too busy playing for the Warriors with Slater and Gallen.
Yeah, but there is one thing I'm excited about for the Titans, though, and that's Milwaukee Fodawaker's getting a start. I kept thinking about getting him into my fantasy team. I didn't do it in the end, but he's actually really good.
You rate that man a lot.
Yeah, I really like watching him. I think he's a big wrecking ball. He can run pretty quick. He can hit the holes well. I really like Fodawaker. It's good to see him getting a start.
The most interesting thing for me in this side is they've got Jamal Fogarty starting over Shannon Boyd over Tyler Boyd. I don't know if he's been injured. Definitely not Shannon Boyd. Wow, I just saw the name there and said Shannon Boyd should be number 7.
Whack the big man in 7. Do it, you cowards.
Considering that they brought Tyler over as being like their next kind of big Ashley Taylor-esque player. I haven't been keeping up with the Titans, so excuse me if I'm completely ignorant of the situation there. But looking at that's the biggest change, other than Tyrone Roberts at fullback.
Yeah, Fogarty is he's been that guy who was always tipped to have massive potential coming through the grades, and he was looking real sharp. And a lot of clubs were throwing big money at him to get them into their side as like a development player years and years ago. And the Eels were the side that got him, and then quickly realised that he might not live up to it and kind of shipped him off again. And he never impressed anyone under the greys of the Eels. I think he's been thrown around since then. So he's finally getting his time. See if he can
see how he goes.
See if he can make an impression in 7 for the Titans.
No doubt. But yeah, easy win by the Cowboys that night, I fear.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And oh no, Kalen's giving me his tips out of order here. Yeah, he's got the Cowboys there as well. So
I was going to say, sure you don't have to look at that one, do you?
Yeah, I was just making sure. Let's see. But then we've got the most classic clash in rugby league history here, Ben, which is massive for these two teams coming back. The Roosters and the Rabbitohs at Bankwest Stadium.
Yeah, look, it's the Sydney Derby, and it's going to be a pretty big game, simply because I think Latrell's coming up against the Roosters for the first time.
You mean, I was like, you mean he's coming up against the Rabbitohs? I don't know why in my head just then he started at the Rabbitohs and went to the Roosters.
Laugh at me for my Shannon Boyd shit. Actually, no, that's a lot worse.
Yeah,
let's not bring that up again, actually.
No, let's not. But yeah, no. And is this Josh Morris's debut for the Roosters?
Yeah, it's his debut for this season. He's coming out and he's going to add a lot to that position, I believe, just simply because he's such an experienced centre. And over the last 2 years, he's proven that his best days may be behind him, but he's still going to be adding a much different Morris to the side, which is still an extremely reliable player.
He's still so good. I don't know how he's been at it for so long.
And a lot
but
faster than he should be.
So good. He really is.
Should not be able to be that mobile.
I love Josh Morris. I love watching him play because you're like, I remember watching you like 10 years ago and you're still just as good and still just as underrated. Yeah, he hasn't aged a bit. But yeah, no, so that'll be exciting to see how he meshes with Daniel Tupou, but I don't think Daniel Tupou will have any concerns about getting enough ball or being set up for tries or anything like that. J-Moz will do his job.
Definitely.
He's a fantastic player. Yeah,
awesome addition to that side.
Yeah, 100%. But let's see, are there any key ins and outs for them? I suppose Mitch Orbison out for the Roosters and Cody Walker out for the Rabbitohs are probably the two biggest changes out of these two teams from their last match.
Definitely.
And Troy Dargan playing number 6 for the Rabbitohs instead of Cody Walker, which is another old Eels junior, actually. But I probably shouldn't say that every time an Eels junior pops up. Everyone was through that club at one point.
Everyone's been an Eels junior. Yeah, obviously Cody Walker's out for the next 2 games. Troy Dargan's got big raps on him from Wayne Bennett, and he's someone who's brought down from the Broncos as well, and he's going to slot into this team relatively easily. I think he'll have the similar play style that he knows from Wayne Bennett before. Overall, though, looking at this side, again, I think the big matchup is going to be in the halves. Like, you've got Luke Keary and Carl Flanagan against Troy Dargan and Adam Reynolds. Flanagan, like a kind of proven starter now. Dargan kind of blooding himself, and Adam Reynolds and Luke Keary, both really, really good players over the last 2 years especially. And I think they're going to be the key to leading these teams around. Actually, they're going to be part of the key along with their hookers. Damien Cook and Jake Friend, they both have big leadership skills in these sides, and they move their forwards around. And I think that's going to be the key, because looking at it on paper, the forwards are going to the Roosters side. I think they have the better forwards for this matchup. But then again, you look at the Rabbitohs, and they have a lot of strength, and they have some strength coming off the bench, which I think will add a lot to them. Look, really, it's a really hard game to call. Like, I'm really unsure on what to pick here.
What's deciding it for me is that the Roosters have more to play for because they're still winless.
That's true.
The Rabbitohs have managed to snag one, so I think the Roosters are, they know there's a little bit more on the line for them, and especially coming off being premiers, they should be holding themselves to a higher standard than being winless out of their first 2 games. So, that's the only reason I'm going to sway to the Roosters. Apart from that, it's a match-for-match game.
Actually, thinking about it, I think the big thing for the Roosters getting the win here for me is the X factor of James Tedesco. Add in the fact that you've got like a ball player like Morris, who is good at looking for his support, and he also supports as well himself. I think that just adds to Tedesco's game. And unless Latrell
and they're a Blues combination too, so they've played together a lot before. They've got that going for them.
But if Latrell can't come out in the way that he has in previous years and be as strong as he has, because if he's going to, it has to be this game. I don't think the Rabbitohs stand a chance.
Yeah, no, I guess it does. Yeah, definitely depend on how well Mitchell fires, which he hasn't done yet out of fullback. But man, he's had that long to train there and try now. It's got to happen at some point.
It's got to be this game.
This game is the most important time for him to fire. And he's got that motivation playing against his old club. This could be, what kicks him in the arse to get him to do it. But then moving into the next game. Oh wait, we both tipped. Oh no, we haven't both done our tips for it, have we? Yeah, I tipped the Roosters as well, and Kalen also does. Being a Roosters fan, that doesn't surprise me. Moving on to the next one though, we've got Warriors Dragons. Warriors, a shell of the team that we probably would have seen before, and the Dragons. I still never know what to say about looking at the Dragons team list because it's just every time I look at it, it's like that's not what I would have done. But anyway, yeah, I'm a professional armchair coach here.
Yep.
But it's Central Coast Stadium. So Warriors, they're based in New South Wales now, so they don't have as big of a travel as they might used to get to this game. What do you think about this one, Ben?
Look, the Dragons, even though they made those kind of unique changes over the first 2 rounds, I think they've got a relatively strong side. Adding Cameron McInnes back into it only justifies this team winning more, because he's essentially the kind of glue that holds them together. Like, he puts in the most effort out of anyone on that team and is invaluable for them. Looking at it, they've got a pretty good bench now. They've got Ewan Aitken on the bench, which is interesting. That means that they're obviously looking at maybe putting him into centre, I assume. I can't really see him playing anywhere else. But overall, I think the fact that there's been so much going on for the Warriors, and the Dragons are coming off a good amount of time to reset after their trials in the first 2 games, and kind of solidify what they want to go forward and do and train with their positions 100%, I guess. Because I know that Mary's come out and said that he doesn't want to make big changes and that what he's putting out and what he's putting forward now is essentially what's going to be the team that plays.
Wow, there you go. I never saw him say that, but it's the back line that gets me with the Dragons. But
you just want to put Lomax at fullback. That's all you want.
Well, I don't know if I'd have Ravalawa in there. I won't get into it, but I don't know. The Dragons have so much potential, especially if you look at their forwards. Their 8 to 13 is packed with that much talent and potential. Like, that always makes me think maybe the Dragons have got a bit of go in them and could win the matchup that they're in. Because a lot of them are representative players or future representative players in like Cam McInnes and that. And it's great to see him back. I guess the Dragons have really they've benefited from the break because McInnes was going to be out for so long. And then, you look at the Warriors, and I guess there's a lot of injuries for them. Like, if you look at their ins list, that is massive. There's 8 names on there. Yeah. It's a shell of a team that wouldn't have been able to train much together. They still have to travel. I don't think I can tip the Warriors for this one.
No, there's going to be an adjustment period for them simply because of all those injuries. And looking at their back line, it's not anywhere near what you'd expect from this team at the moment.
No, not at all. That's far from their best 1 to 7. So, yeah, I can't tip them winning this one. I think the Dragons might run away with it.
Yeah, I have to agree.
What did Kalen tip for this one? I doubt it was the Warriors.
I don't know. He has some good left field views for us.
He does. He loves a crazy option. That's usually what differentiates him in the tipping comps. But Dragons. So, alrighty. And then going into the next game, which is actually one of the games I'm most excited for, is Sharks and West Tigers at Bankwest on the Super Saturday. We've got almost in some parts a band-aided team for the Sharks, and then the West Tigers as well with a few new names in there. So, we'll see how they go. Ben, what are your thoughts on seeing your team run around for the 3rd time this year?
I guess disappointed at this point. Not going into the negative, like we said, not being able to watch Jerry essentially probably for this year, and who knows how long if things go wrong with this whole doping thing. He's a player I've most looked forward to seeing, and I think that he was our X factor. Looking at the team now, I don't rate Dugan as a 3. I just don't think he can hold up there. We've got rid of Morris. We don't have much backup in that number 3 position or in that centre position at all anymore. I really like Mulatalo and Katoa, and I think I'd prefer Kennedy at fullback over Moylan. He does have the ability to set up tries, but his errors and his missed tackles, they overshadow so much what he does. I could be wrong. He could come back and he could be the player that he was when he left the Panthers, but I just don't see it happening. The shining light that could be for us is if Johnson manages to fire. This is his 2nd year. He has no real excuse to be sitting on the sideline in a metaphorical way. and having the team completely run by Chad. I think he needs to step up and kind of create those gaps that he does through his footwork. But otherwise, I really like our forwards. I'm a big fan of Blake Brayley. All of our tried and true forwards are in there. Our bench is really strong now too. We have Connor Tracy as a utility with Hamlin-Uele, Rudolph and Sorensen there as well, and then some good reserves. There are definitely positives for my side, but it really is overshadowed by the news as of today about Jerry. That'll pass. That'll pass after a week. Like I said, I'm really keen on watching him, but not going to happen. But we talked about it earlier. West Tigers are my smoky, and as hard as it is to say, I think I'm going to have to tip the West Tigers for this win.
Oh, big. It is very unfortunate news about Bronson Xerri, though. You'd really be wishing that you didn't let go of Morris, but I guess no one saw that coming. So, it just it baffles me how much you really don't like Moylan. Like, I understand it, but also I know you don't really like William Kennedy much, or you've said that before, and you're still like, yeah, I'd take William Kennedy over Moylan.
At least he can catch a football, man.
He's dropped a few, though. But, yeah, would you take... what are the odds of Moylan moving into that one, though, do you think, over Kennedy?
There's been a lot of rumours that he is basically at 100% again now. I think that with the news of Xerri, he might be pushed forward to that starting position. You never can tell with the way that Morris plays. He is pretty set on just playing the players that have been named. But, yeah, like, it could go either way. And realistically, I don't think that it is the strongest option either way. But again, like I said, I am really harsh on Moylan. He has had some glimpses of greatness, but he is a detriment to the team a lot of the time. Like, those sets of 6 and making us continue to defend on our line, like, they wear you out, not only like in a defense, but also they damage your attack at the same time. I think he is at the heart a great player, but he needs to kind of regain that form and play more than fucking 12 games in the year, please.
Yeah, he has never really hit the form he had at Penrith ever since he left, which is unfortunate because I always thought he was a gun at Penrith.
So did I.
I thought originally he was a great signing for the Sharks, but but what I'm really interested to see is how Harry Grant's going to go in number 9 for the Tigers. It's his debut for them, and he's always been touted as a really great 9 coming through, so I'm excited to see that. He's probably not going to play the full game because we've got Billy Walters on the bench. But what I'm really excited to see, actually, is Sean Johnson versus Benji Marshall. I think
derby.
both of them will see it as an audition to play as the Kiwi 6.
That's true. I didn't
really
think about that.
Yeah, because I think Marshall still has it and could still deserve to play international if he can keep up the form he had the last 2 games, which is without a doubt better than Johnson's form.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, and I think those two might see each other as kind of rivals for that jersey, and then both might lift for it. I think they're mates and everything, but yeah. So that'll be a really interesting battle to watch. I've actually got the Sharks tipped for this one.
Okay. It's hard to go against, like I said, but I really do have good raps on the Tigers this year. What are your thoughts on the fact that Billy Walters beat out Reynolds for that interchange position?
I think Billy Walters played really well in the last 2 games. I thought he seemed really composed. I thought he was almost pivotal for them, really. Like, I thought he seemed to play a really important role and quite well. And there are a lot of rumours that Josh Reynolds is on the move now too, so maybe that's why he's sitting there in the reserves as well. Like, Josh Reynolds, he's a quality player. It's just never happened for him at the Tigers. He's never got his way into the side since his first injury, really, so...
Unfortunate, but yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And then moving on to the next game, which is another banger. Saturday's such a good day for footy, isn't it?
This is the best game of the round, hands down, has to be.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. It could almost be the grand final as well, like what we talked with before. So, yeah, we've got the Melbourne Storm versus the Canberra Raiders down in Melbourne. I can't even begin what I think about this game, really. It's another flip of the coin.
My initial thought straight away is, do we know what's going on with Momorowski? Why isn't he included in that side?
I don't know. I suppose, yeah. I mean, they've got Olam and Seve in the centres, but I would rate Momorowski over either of them. He's not injured or anything, have you heard?
I don't know. I've only just had a good chance to look through this team now. I'm not sure.
I haven't even thought about it, actually, because obviously Melbourne really wanted him because they pushed that move through after it looks like it was never going to happen. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe he's just not fit, or maybe Bellamy wants him to have a little bit more time to mesh with the side before he plays him.
True.
I have no idea.
We'll see what happens. But, yeah, 2 absolutely monster sides, and essentially at full strength now, bar Bateman for the Raiders. It's going to be a pretty monumental clash. these teams both realistically could be pushing for a top 2 finish. I think that this game will be pivotal for them because it's going to set them up for the rest of the year. Winning like this kind of level game this early on is a huge confidence booster, and I think that both teams are going to come out and be firing. One thing to keep in mind is the Storm are playing at Amy Park, and I think that they have, I guess, the arrogance to be able to assume it's a real home game with a crowd behind them when they're in Melbourne there, which is a great thing for them. But really strong side coming down from the Raiders as well.
No one follows the game down in Melbourne anyway. I think that it'll be about a similar size crowd as they used to. But I think this will be a really entertaining game to watch because it's two sides that really fight to the last nail to get a win, and two coaches that force them to do that, and two coaches that are really good mates and I think know each other's kind of coaching in and out. So, it'll be really interesting to watch. I think, Melbourne are also missing Brandon Smith.
No,
they're
back.
not. He's 14. Yeah, there you go. I thought he was still gone. Oh, that's great. Alrighty. Anyway, I'm so excited to watch this game. I'm going to tip the Raiders purely because I like them more, and that's it.
I'm going to probably tip the Raiders too. I really like their side, and I think George Williams has yet to show his best, even though he was great in those first 2 rounds, and Whiten was absolutely on fire for those 2 rounds as well, so he's going to turn that team around easily. At what point do you think that Rapana makes it into the Raiders side? If they have a strong performance and Simonson plays as well as he has over the last basically 2 years, do you think that he keeps him out of the side?
I think he does. I think you play, especially Ricky Stewart, his mentality is just going to be play whoever's been in form. And if Simonson doesn't drop in form, then I can't see Rapana making his way in.
It's a hard one because he does have a little bit of loyalty though, like to White, and he kept him there. And Rapana, I don't know. It's hard. We'll see what happens though. I was just curious what your thoughts on that one were.
Well, he's not going to play him over Nick Kotrick. And
no, well, Simon.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't see him not picking on form.
Simonson definitely would be the one that gets dropped if anything happens.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
absolutely. But hang on. Let me just get Kalen's tip because I closed it. I don't think I said his tip on the last one either. Kalen tipped the Sharks on the last one, and with this one, he's got the Storm.
Okay.
So he's split us there. Then down into the next game. Oh, man, it's another cracker.
Banner.
This round is so good. Anyway, we've got the Knights and the Panthers. How exciting is it to have Footy back? We've got the Knights and the Panthers. Tex Hoy making his NRL debut at fullback with Kalen Ponga being suspended, which is, to me, that's probably the biggest addition or change to either of the teams, really. But, actually, Nathan Cleary's not playing.
No, Matt Burton, but he's played last year, and he was pretty great, number 6. He had a really good game, so I think he slots in
match, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he had an incredible game at home for Penrith last year.
I really like his game. And the forwards for the Panthers are back to full strength. Fisher Harris is coming off a long layover and time to really recuperate from that injury. Kurt Capel, one of the bigger off-season signings, is into the side as well. Going through James Talmau, like Coruscant, Fisher Harris, kick out, Capel and Yo. That's a really strong starting forward pack. And then Crichton,
and I would say Yo is in career best form.
Oh
as well.
God, he was so good. And then you got Tedavano, Leota, and Liam Martin on the bench. I have huge raps on Liam Martin. I think he is an absolute gun. And I think coming off the bench, he's going to put a huge injection into that side that I don't think the Knights can match with their bench.
Yeah, no, I think the interchange will be the decider as well. And I think that Panthers have a much better interchange too. They've got, what I do notice is Bradman Best sitting in the reserves. Everyone has him tipped as a better centre than Anari Tuala. The only reason he hasn't been playing is because he's been injured. Do you think we might see him move into the side last minute?
Well, I mean, Tuala is a good player, and he came from, I believe, the Cowboys, where he was touted as a good centre. I think that if he keeps playing well, he keeps Best out of the side at the moment, but it could just be one slip of the hand that pushes Bradman into that side. It's really hard because there's no reserve grade now. You can't judge their performances. So you really need to go off how your players are playing on the field at the moment. Yeah.
I mean, Bradman Best was a lot of people's tip for Rookie of the Year as well. A lot of people are really on him. I wouldn't be surprised if he makes his way into the side, last thing you hear Sunday.
Yeah.
I don't know, but Tuala has been doing a good job there in the first 2 rounds. But, I think my tip for this one, although I really want the Knights to win, I tip the Panthers.
Me too.
I really like the Knights. Like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I think they're going to do really well this year, but I think Penrith are going to do even better.
I'm going to tip the Panthers, but if the Knights do win it, it will be through having 2 established halves.
Oh, 100%. I mean, you can't deny, Kurt Mann and Mitchell Pearce, especially just Mitchell Pearce himself running his side. He's going to do that better than Luai. So, yeah, absolutely. It might come down to that.
Should be an awesome game, though. I'm actually really looking forward to this one.
Let's see. Moving on to the next game, we've got Manly and the Bulldogs. Actually, sorry, Kalen's tip for that one as well. I keep forgetting about you. Sorry, Kalen.
You need to go back, my man.
Kalen tipped the Knights for that one, so split us again. Let's see.
God damn. Wish I could have his opinions on it. Make it a lot more interesting.
It's almost like he heard our tips first and then just decided, I'm going to tip whatever they don't. But
no way. He's got calculated plans behind all of them.
Oh, he does.
Math formula.
He's run the numbers. But
yeah.
Let's see. For the last game of the round on Sunday, we've got Manly versus the Bulldogs. One team in Manly that I think is going to do really well. The other team, you're Smokey, Ben. How do you feel about this one?
They were.
Okay, were being the key word. Gotcha.
Okay, they're no longer my Smokey, okay?
Gotcha.
Yeah. But no, Seagulls run away with this game. The Seagulls are at basically 100% strength. Mm-hmm. They have their full team. They are missing Fainu still, but Levi, through, sheer determination and simply to surprise me, is playing really well at number 9 for them. Lachlan Croker actually coming with interchange has upped his game a lot and actually made a huge impact when he came in to that Roosters game. Turned it around basically on his own with some strips and some tackles where they lost the ball. And then you got Waddell, Kepi and Paseka coming off the bench. They've got a really, really strong side to complement how good they are from last year. Whereas you look at the Bulldogs and they've kind of become a bit more all over the shop. You've got players like Kerrod Holland, Aiden Tolman, like Sione Katoa, Brendan Waken. They're not in the side at the moment. I don't know if that's through injury or what's going on there, but you've got Suasu Su starting and Dean Britt starting. They weren't expected to be there.
No.
And then Lachlan Lewis and Jack Cogger starting. They're still waiting on Kieran Foran to come back into that side. I think if Kieran Foran comes back in and you get the likes of Tolman and that back in the side, it steers them back on course. Mm-hmm. But at the moment, it's very band-aided, I think, especially with the whole debacle with the off-season. Look, it's not the off-season. Stop calling it the off-season. The whole debacle with the players there and the high school incident, we won't go into that anymore, has made it hard for the Bulldogs as well. So ultimately, I think the Bulldogs are going to struggle now. I can't really see them as being a Smoky anymore with the way things have panned out. Seagulls come away with this easily.
Yeah, 100%. Especially without Kieran Foran, he is so integral to that side. It's ridiculous. And yeah, he's still not back, even though a lot of people expect him to be back around now, I think. But I think it's going to be a few more weeks. But yeah, I think looking at just the team list side by side, you look at the forwards especially, and how stacked Manly's side is compared to...
it's so good.
Compared to the Bulldogs. Josh Jackson, don't get me wrong, he's one of the best forwards in the game at the moment, but he's not enough.
He's probably one of my favourite.
Yeah, probably, he's so up there, but he's not enough to carry the rest of those names on there. Even Dylan Napa is a shell of what he used to be. Yeah, you from 8 to 13, that is a star-studded cast at the moment for Manly. It's so good.
It's so good. And you got to think Joel Thompson and Sirenen, they didn't play essentially most of the back end of last year, and they still pushed most teams in the forwards pretty easily.
Yeah.
What are they going to be able to do with a full-strength forward pack? It's going to be basically the sky's the limit for them. If Cherry Evans plays the way that he has been over the last couple of years, it's... Whew, and Tom Trbojevic there for the whole year. I'm really excited to watch Manly play this year.
Yeah, me too.
Realistically, they were probably one that I didn't put enough emphasis on to be in the grand final this year.
Yeah, and Moses...
Imagine a Manly and Eels grand final for you, Sam.
Ooh, I'd love it. Oh, Dad being a Manly fan, we'd have to watch it together and just sledge each other. True. That'd be great. But Moses Sully is someone I'm really excited about with the Seagulls as well, because he's always had mad potential, but he just had no work ethic at training or anything. He got shuffled around sides and I think dropped his head for a while. But it seems that Manly, Des has got his act together. He's been playing really well. So I'm excited to hopefully see him fire. I've got Manly for this one. As we said, you do as well. And Kalen also has Manly, so we're all matched on that one. That's
Kalen also chose the opposite.
That's there's no way.
Please.
Bulldogs. But
oh dear.
So that rounds it out for all of our predictions for round 3 with the footy coming back. I am keeping count of all our tips, so hopefully by the end of the season, out of the 3 of us, we'll see who's the best tipper. What are the odds it's Kalen? Because you and I seem to nearly always tip the same, but he's the only one who goes different.
I don't want to brag, but the tipping comp we're in, I'm equal first, so it's probably me.
Yeah, look, only 2 rounds have been played, Ben. It's
No. When you look at the ladder.
2 rounds hardly separated. There's been 16 games.
Look, there's no matter that we're 1 tip between each other. It doesn't matter. Stats are stats, man.
But those are all of our predictions. And speaking of another ladder, Ben, we're in a fantasy competition with some listeners as well that have been joining. Unfortunately, the opportunity for people to join that ended with round 1. So if you missed out, I'm sorry about that. But we are going to have our regular fantasy segment come back now that the footy's back. And we have something to talk about. And man, boy, did this break really screw around with NRL fantasy.
Oh man, it made me better. I had a horrible start. It was one of the worst starts that I've had to NRL fantasy since I started playing, probably. And this, I got to tell you, this is the best thing that's happened to me. This 4 trades.
Oh man, it's the worst.
I'm trending upwards, hopefully.
Oh, it's the worst because I had so many cash cows that were doing well that started the basement price, and they only
cheap.
They only got 2 rounds of making a little bit of money, which isn't nearly enough. And then now they're not making sides because they were filling in for people who had like 2-month long injuries that are obviously completed now. So it's really screwed me around. I've had to trade players that were cheap to begin with for more players that are cheap that aren't going to make money because they're not that great. Like they've earned their price. It's
oh man, heavy days.
Yeah, like I still like my side, but it could be better. Yeah.
All right, I've got to put this question to you then. Who do you have left that is a cash cow that you think is going to be able to produce money for you still?
So the ones I've got that I still think are going to make money, he hasn't for me yet, but I think he'll turn it around. I'm still giving it a chance in Jack Williams. I've still got him in there purely because I couldn't trade him out, even with those 4 trades. But I think he will start to make money. I just think if he gets some more regular game time under his belt, gets it together a bit more, I think he'll get up there. I've still got Fawaso Amaluai from Melbourne in there as well, but he's in my emergencies, and Sean Kepi also as well, who isn't scoring for me. So I've still got those guys who are cash cows, as well as Jerome Luai. But yeah.
Yeah, well, I've still got Tanoa Brown, who actually made the starting side for the Warriors now. I got Sam Lasone, who's in the starting side for the Titans. Toby Rudolph, who is making huge points the same way that Hamlin-Uele was over the last couple of years off the bench for the Sharks. Elisai Katoa, who I think definitely has a chance to push for a starting side. If not, he'll get some price rises for me. And then you've got Jerome Luai and Billy Walters to a much lesser extent now. I think that he might be able to get a couple of price rises before I can offload him. Then again, also, I think that in my centres, I've actually got Brent Naden. I took a big punt on that man, and I think that when Cleary comes back, he can merge like they did at the end of last year. He's going to get me some money as well, and I can possibly upgrade or keep him depending on what happens. Yeah,
nice. I actually like a lot of those ideas. I think keeping Billy Walters is a risky one. I got rid of him. I didn't think he'd make much. I think he's going to get very limited minutes.
He's in my emergencies, and I don't need coverage in position, so he was just someone that I can throw away if I need to.
Oh, 100%. That's pretty much why I've still got Sean Kepi there as well, I suppose.
I've also got 300k left to play with, so it makes it a lot easier that way.
Ooh, after all my trades, I've only got 13k left. But did you have David Fifita before all this went down? Okay, I did. So with him opting to have surgery, he's out for a little while now, so I had to trade him. But I think I really rate the trade, actually. I traded David Fifita for Isaiah Yeo.
Very good.
Who is cheaper. He's a bit over 100k cheaper, actually. And he's been pumping out just as good numbers. He's averaging
and he has had
70.
good last years.
Yeah, 100%. Like, he can do it. So, I'm hoping he makes a little bit more money than David Fifita was worth. And then when David Fifita's fit, I'll trade him back in because he was making money despite his massive break even. He was making a lot of money every week. So,
you might even be able to shuffle it around to keep both of them by that time. Who knows?
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, nearly all my forwards are Broncos players at the moment. You can't go past them. But yeah, I traded Billy Walters for Tom Flegler. So lost a bit of money on that one. And then Will Kennedy, I swapped with Lomax, who I already had in my centres. I put Lomax into fullback. And then I traded Will Kennedy for Bradman Best, is penciled in there at the moment. But because it's not certain if he's playing, that's probably one I'm going to shuffle around and think about. Were there any ones that you nearly put in that you might have passed up on for any reason? Like, were there any other players you were thinking about throwing in there?
No. Kind of all the trades that I wanted to make, I've made. Like I said, I actually haven't gone through them yet. So I traded out Jack Williams for LSI Katoa. I think that the price difference, I make a bit of money there, and Katoa is going to be making money, hopefully. Fusitu'a didn't come over. He did have a really bad start to the year. I took a punt on that. Didn't pan out, but I've picked up Dale Copley. I think he's had previous years where he's had big scores, and I think in a team where he's probably going to have to step up, if he can stay healthy, he's going to also make me some money. That's probably my biggest risk so far. And then Joe Stimson, someone who I had also really hoped was going to make me money. He's got a long-term injury, but I've actually picked up Tyson Frisell, who over the last couple of years hasn't had, probably over the last year, wasn't as big in fantasy as he has been previously, but the way he's been playing down there for the Dragons has been really good, and I'm hoping he can push up for that 800k kind of status that he was at once.
Yeah, 100%. I think he could do it. I think at the Dragons, he has to carry a pretty big load. And I don't think he'll not play as hard knowing that he's going to move on to the Knights. But I think he'll play just as hard as well. I think that's a pretty damn good trade, Ben.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it.
And each of us still have one trade left. Do you think you're going to use that fourth one before we kick off?
No.
Yeah, me either. I'm keeping it in the bank just in case. You don't know what's going to happen.
No. Depends on what you have to do for Bradman Best, though.
Oh, well, I mean, that's not using an extra trade. I can just reverse that trade and get someone else in.
I was going to say, do you have enough money for that?
I still have 13k remaining, so I don't have much.
How much is Bradman?
He is 325.
Ooh, that doesn't leave you very many options.
No, but there are a lot of centers, cheap centers that are starting out that could make a little bit of money this week in a lot of teams. So, and if not, I can also just straight swap him for Tuala, who's playing ahead of him anyway. So, yeah, I'm not really too fussed about centers. That's kind of the one throwaway position you don't really want to think about too much. Because they never score you much anyway.
I wouldn't say that.
I would say that.
I mean, who were your two centres last year? Can you tell me what scores they were getting average?
Oh, dude, I can't even... Oh, well, they were second rowers. They went centres.
Yeah,
that's
it was
right.
Nikora and Bateman.
We can't cheat that way anymore, though.
I wish it was that simple.
So and those two started at basement price, too. They started at like 220k.
50, 50.
Man, those were the days.
Anyway, I'm looking forward to watching Sam cry and crumble as you enact your extreme regime of 50 pluses or you're out of the team. So we'll see who's left by the end of it.
Yeah, look, I run a tight ship here, Ben. You have to perform while you're out of here. But anyway, guys, we're starting to hit the hour mark now, so it's probably time to wrap it up. It's been so much fun to finally cover football again, start to talk about balls being kicked, teams tackling each other and whatnot. It's been so long. I'm so excited for this round of football.
What a very erogenous way to end this.
100%. But yeah, thanks for listening, guys. And remember to share this podcast with some of your footy friends as well. We're available on all podcast services as well as YouTube, where I'll be throwing up some extra side videos as well for you guys, with the Rugby League Bunker on there too. Rugby League Bunker and any other podcast service. And if you guys have anything you want to talk to us about, maybe some podcast ideas or topics, definitely tweet at us. We're at the RL Bunker. And once again, guys, thank you for listening. We're going to be back weekly for you guys again. And until next week, I can finally say, enjoy your football.